So welcome officially to Thoughts on Thursday. This week we're tackling mental health. And many of you know we set up Apollo really so that the industry could come together and share its knowledge and gain more knowledge on important topics and to champion causes in hospitality that we're really passionate about and we think are raised. Around mental health, I think we're all on an incredibly steep learning curve. I know that I am, but thinking about the mental health of ourselves, our family, our colleagues over the last year. And of course, we all have mental health, however we're feeling on any given day. But I think this year has tested all of us to tremendously different levels, whether that be around job security, in our support networks, loneliness, financial, physical health of us or loved ones or team members. And so it was really important to me, and I'm delighted. I wanted to bring together some people who've been looking at this for years. And hospitality, I think, is prone to such specific issues in this space, given the way we work and the service that we try and provide the world. I'm really aware we won't be able to do mental health much justice in 55 minutes. It's such a deep topic, but I didn't want to shy away from starting the conversation. And we can, of course, gather again as often as we need and continue the conversation on Apollo, in person, at events, or just in discussion threads. But I'm really excited to make introductions to our speakers and let them shape us with their learnings and their experiences. As usual, as I mentioned, it is a Q&A and a discussion, so please get started. Now, the last thing I'll say is the topics we're covering today go quite a bit deeper than some of the others that we've covered, and I take that really seriously. So if today's topics raises some issues with you that you are more personal, then I know that all three of our speakers will be available afterwards on LinkedIn or on Apollo immediately, tomorrow, whenever you feel ready to speak. If you want to pick up on anything that you want to address. We also have a mental health first aider on hand, so please reach out to Susan Osborne here. Thanks for raising your hand. During or after the session, she's here if anyone feels particularly overwhelmed by anything we talk about, they hear that might leave them in a vulnerable place, that they're just not sure what to do with those feelings or might do or where to go. So again, whether that be immediately after the event or tomorrow in the future, then that's on offer. I'll put the details in the chat. So I will keep my introductions short. I think we'll go ladies first. So Tobie-Ann, if you want to start. Tobie-Ann's got a chefing background, has set up a fabulous mental health training organisation called Kelly's Cause. Then we'll be hearing from Simon, who I don't think he knows this, but I actually first met when I worked back at Unilever back in the early 2000s. He was an inspirational chef running the demo kitchen. It's been fun watching him go on to leading Brigade, which is a fabulous kind of one-of-a-kind restaurant and training concept that gives all of its profits to charities and social enterprises, and also has a fabulous story of pivoting a restaurant and a charity in a crisis. And then we're going to finish up with Patrick from So Let's Talk, who again is on a really interesting personal journey and share his mental health learnings with the industry. So really excited to get started. Tobie-Ann, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, James. So yes, as James said, I'm Tobie-Anna and I am the founder of Kelly's Cause Foundation. So Kelly's Cause Foundation was founded in honor of my very dear friend and fellow chef Kelly, who took her own life when she was just 23. So we both studied together at cooking school in London and then went on to work in different London restaurants and would keep in touch and catch up all the time and share our stories of, the ridiculous situations we would find ourselves in kitchens and, go out to eat and share all of these kind of things. And she was really dealing with a lot of mental health issues and experiencing poor mental health, even prior to starting in kitchens, but it was working in professional kitchens that really pushed her over the edge before she very sadly took her own life. And it was after this that I realized that we have a real problem in hospitality where not only are we putting people in very stressful situations, making them work very long hours, we're also not giving them the time to do the basic things we need to do to look after our own mental health. Not enough time to sleep, exercise, eat, let alone eat well. I don't know how many people in hospitality have ever really sat down for 3 meals a day while you're at work. I can see lots of people nodding and smiling along, so you all know what I'm talking about. And this was almost 3 years ago now, and we definitely have come a long way now. You know, we have other fabulous organizations like So Let's Talk that Patty runs, and the Burnt Chef Project, and other organizations that are starting to, you know, get the conversation rolling as well. But back then there really was nothing, and there was so much stigma towards mental health. And I know that Kelly just felt very unsupported in the kitchens that she had been working in. So that was where Kelly's Cause was kind of born from, and we do mental health first aid training. And the reason that we chose mental health first aid is because it is the most like evidence-based, scientifically backed and proven training that is out there. So just like physical first aid, mental health first aid is all about learning how to, one, look after your own mental health and well-being, which is so important, and two, how to spot the signs and symptoms of poor mental health in other people, and then what to do to help and support that person through either a crisis or through helping encourage them to both professional and kind of other supports that they can go to. And then having these trained mental health first aiders within the hospitality industry also helps to challenge stigma, helps to open conversations, helps people to be able to talk more openly and honestly about their mental health, which is something that is really, really important. So that's kind of our main aim. We are officially registered as a charity, which we got in November 2019, so about 3 months before everything kind of fell apart, and we had to pivot to doing online training, which in the beginning I was quite skeptical about, I must be honest, but I have actually found that in the last 12 months, the trainings that we've been able to take and the feedback that we've had and the reach that we've been able to have because we've been doing it online has just been amazing. And it's been really great from a personal point of view to be able to kind of offer people these skills and confidence to speak openly and honestly about mental health and help themselves and other people during this very, very difficult time. With people either being on furlough, or if they're not on furlough, they're at work and they're in a different environment and they're understaffed, and lots of different pressures, and then the pressure of kind of opening back up and going back to normal. And I hope that we're going to see some kind of change across the hospitality industry for the better as we start to open up again, and we're going to take some of these things that we've learned during lockdown about having a better work-life balance and all of those things, and looking after our mental health into the kind of new future of hospitality. So yeah, that's probably enough from me right now, but I really look forward to hearing some questions from you guys and talking a little bit more about mental health within the hospitality industry.
Perfect. Thanks, Tobie-Anna. Simon.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. So thank you, James. I didn't realise that I'd forgotten actually, right, that we'd worked together, or at least you'd come through my kitchen, I suppose, at Unilever. Actually, it's apt that you say that, because I started Beyond Food back in those days. It was very much a kind of started as a hospitality business at the weekends and doing private dining and so on. And it's just grown. Lots of things happened to me over time that's made me realise that we need to help people within our community and people in and around us. And so I started Beyond Food Foundation. We're now, I don't know, when was that? Now almost 17 years old as a charity. We're all about trying to prevent homelessness and utilise the hospitality industry to inspire people and support people, as well as train and employ. So our vehicle, if you like, our shop Windows Brigade, it's a social enterprise restaurant on Tooley Street in London, just near London Bridge. We run a series of programs which are all connected, and we would normally go to job centres, homeless shelters, and because of lockdown and because of the pandemic, we've changed a little bit, but we basically bring people onto our journey. They go through these series of programs and hopefully learn to live back in their own means again, standing on their own 2 feet. Yes, feeling supported by others, but moving into employment status so that they feel a bit more self-confident and their self-esteem is raised so that they can look after themselves. During the pandemic, actually, we changed things a little bit. So we started to focus on lockdown 1, which was very much about our beneficiaries and externally of our beneficiaries to help people. Lockdown 2 was very much about the hospitality industry. We created a new program called Made Again. It's still live now. Made Again is very much about trying to help people kind of if they're being furloughed or they feel that they're going to lose their their position or their job or their status in whatever situation they're in. Made Again is about trying to reinvigorate them, digging deep, trying to understand what their strengths are, and really energize them into, having to maybe rethink their careers, reimagine what they're all about as people. And it's a really hard thing. And it very much focuses on people's mental health. And Lockdown 3, we've really actually been looking at ourselves as an organization and really helping ourselves. So as a great example of that, we have Alan, who's on our screens today. Alan has trained up my whole team at Beyond Food as mental health first aiders. Gosh, I didn't realize that we needed such training for each other and for ourselves personally. So really focusing on ourselves so that we can really support the whole team at Brigade and Beyond Food and all of our beneficiaries. So, we're very privileged to be able to do what we do. We love food, we love service, we love hospitality, and couple that with helping people to move their lives on. And so we're very lucky to be able to do that. But as everybody, we realize that everyone has suffered at the moment. So if you know anybody that needs a little extra support, they need some help, then Made Again, I think, is a really great course for everybody. And I shall leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Paddy, over to you.
How are we doing, everyone? I hope we're good. I really do mean that. I hope you are good. So my name's Patrick. I'm the founder of So Let's Talk. So Let's Talk is a non-for-profit organisation. We provide preventative and holistic trainings on mental, physical and financial health. So a little bit about myself. I've been working in the hospitality industry for the past 14 years. So started off really humble beginnings. I was glass collecting in a working men's club in Burnley, which is just outside of Manchester. I don't blame you if you don't know where it is. And I absolutely fell in love with the industry from the get-go. I loved everything about the social aspects with it. So I ended up making it my career. And at the age of 20, I was a general manager. And I had absolutely no right to be a general manager at 20. I was given a set of keys and told to start forecasting and manage this team of people. And with that came a lot of stress and pressures. And I fell into some really destructive habits really early on. My recreational drug use was through the roof. I had a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I didn't sleep a lot. I only connected with people inside of the hospitality industry that were looping the same cycles as myself. And I actually perpetuated that cycle for over 10 years. I was moving around the Northwest, working in different venues, general managing these beautiful places. And actually what I was doing was running away. I was hoping that if I changed my environment, that my reality would change. And that never happened. I followed myself. It happened over and over again. So towards the back end of 2019, I was doing some consultancy at a pop-up bar in Manchester. And I had 3 AFDs. If you don't know what an AFD is, it stands for just really long shifts. I'm not going to actually tell you what it means. And what happened through those 3 days that I was working, instead of going home after my shifts, I decided to go out. I was using drugs and I was drinking a lot. And I actually turned up to all my shifts and nobody recognized that I wasn't compos mentis. Now that for me was really scary because it meant that my tolerance levels were through the roof. So I got home after those 3 shifts. I was sat in my mum's spare room. I decided that I had to leave hospitality or I wasn't going to be here for much longer. And then what happened is I checked my salary for the year and worked out I'd spent 65% of my salary on drugs and alcohol, something that not a lot of people will talk about, but something that's actually quite relevant inside of the industry. So then what happened is I got angry. I got angry because I thought to myself, if I've been doing this for 10 years plus and I've not had an avenue for help, it's not ready accessible enough. So what can I do to create that? I had a bit of a rant. I put a post onto the Manchester Bars page and I said, look, I want to create a platform where we can openly talk about our mental, physical and financial health within inside of hospitality. That post got a lot of traction and now it brings us to today. We now have a team of 24 people at So Let's Talk. We run out sessions that revolve around mental, physical, financial health. They are created by experts in their fields. We make them relevant for the hospitality industry and then we deliver them from a place of experience. Our tagline is to 86 to silence. If you don't know what 86 means, it's a hospitality call for when something's run out or something's gone. And we're looking to get rid of the silence around the conversation that's just not been happening for a long time. We're looking to debadge ourselves for wearing badges of honor for these really destructive habits that we take ownership inside of the industry. We're looking to change the identity of hospitality and stop the ownership of this being an unhealthy relationship, an unhealthy industry to work inside of. And then our core value is to provide what it is that you want, not what we think you need. It's okay for me now as a day walker with a routine to be talking to you about what kind of things we should be doing inside of the industry. What we do at So Let's Talk is we initiate conversations and we listen to understand, not to reply. And then off the back of that understanding, we evolve our sessions so that you can get some value from it. So yeah, thank you very much for the platform. I'm really looking forward to chatting to you all.
Very cool. Thanks all of you. That's great. Well, let's get straight into it. Kat, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. This was a question based on what Tobie-Anna was talking about. Love your name, by the way, really unique. I think that's awesome. But it was, you were mentioning about, with your company, you can identify the signs of people struggling with mental health. If you do see people that may be showing signs of a mental health struggle, but you feel that the person in question doesn't feel that way, or you feel like they don't want support, how would you handle that or go forward with that?
Well, this is basically exactly what you will learn if you come on a mental health first aid course. So we go through all of this and provide you with a framework in which to have that conversation with somebody, what to do if you come up against that resistance, and the kind of appropriate resources to point people towards. So I can answer the question and give you a couple of tips, but it would be remiss of me to go into too much detail and depth on that within this, because you won't be fully supported or have enough kind of training and understanding to know how to have those conversations safely. And I mean that safely for yourself and also safely for that other person. So I think that the number one thing that I would say is just be there to listen to that person. I know Patrick just touched on that a lot about how the understanding, listening to understand rather than, listening to respond is really, really important. So if you can just be a listening ear for that person, and it's something as simple as asking them like, how are you going? And then, we're so programmed to respond to that, just to say, yeah, I'm fine, or good, or okay. And then ask them, no, actually, like, really, how are you? And something as simple as that. And then just listening and not worrying about what you're going to say back to them, not worrying about being able to provide a solution to their problem or anything like that, but just being a listening ear for them is so important and something that is so valuable. So I would say that, if you come on a mental health first aid course, you'll be able to do more than that. But from the kind of limited time that we have here today, I would say that is just the number one thing.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Alex?
Hello, everyone. Really interesting to listen to you so far. I do have a question to any of you, really. Hospitality has always been quite traditional, where we've been more or less pushing mental health away. So now with the kind of culture coming in surrounding tech and which really embraces mental health, how do you think the phrase "leave your problems at the door when you come into work" will really change? Any of you, really?
Yeah, I'd love to take the kind of lead on this one. I mean, amazing question, by the way, Alex. Absolutely love it. And something that we talk really heavily about at So Let's Talk, which is the fact that we are human beings, not human doings. And in the trade, we get so used to serving other people that we forget to serve ourselves. And one thing that we start to become really apparent, which is amazing, is that during this furlough period and this lockdown that we're having in the UK, people are starting to connect with what makes them human beings. Because they're so busy in the trade, they don't get a chance to connect with themselves. And now they're starting to create these habits that are, a lot more positive for themselves. So one thing that we're working with on organizations is how we change the questions at the start of a shift. So instead of asking people, do you have a bar blade or a waiter's friend? And do you have your equipment ready for your shift? Asking questions like, when was the last time that you had a home cooked meal? When was the last time you got quality sleep? When was the last time that you checked in with yourself or you've been writing a journal? Because if the person that's actually operating that equipment isn't in the right place to do so, it doesn't matter whether they're at work or not, it's not going to be effective. And this kind of culture change is really starting to make a difference. I mean, Deloitte have just put out some information that tells people that if they invest £1 inside of the health and well-being of their team, it's a £5 return on the bottom line. So we know money talks inside of any business. And the fact that not only it can be good for the people, but for the business is starting to become really apparent.
Just jumping on that, Paddy, there was another study that was done that actually showed that you got £97 return for every £1 that you invest in mental health training for your staff. So we're talking, like, if you want to look at it from a business perspective, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I don't have any new stats on those two, but but what I would say is, you know, when somebody comes on shift and you ask them how they are, that question is never really backed by honest, you know, realism of how are you. You know, it's a question that we just throw away. Yeah, I'm fine, and off you go, you start. But actually, if we just stop for a minute, so at brigade we do. Before every shift, you know, people come 15 minutes before. It's a cup of coffee. It's a, you know, how are you? What's going on? You know, is everything okay? And we start, and that's how we start every shift. And I think it's so important. And I've heard there's lots of other people that are doing various different techniques before shifts start. That, you know, whether it's a little bit of mindfulness, a bit of yoga, and a bit of, you know, just time to just settle into the shift rather than be running around. Come with a whole lot of issues on your shoulders, and then expect to run a 12-hour, 14-hour shift that is, you know, packed full of pressure because, you know, you've got customers late waiting. It's very stressful. So I think we have to take the stress out of it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm just going to ask one of the private questions someone asked me, which is that there's a lot of students here, and I can see some of their lecturers as well have joined us. There's obviously a tremendous amount of anxiety around just actually, will there be work, and are there going to be jobs? How is there a way to manage mental health in their early careers, do you think, where maybe they feel maybe there's slightly less power to take charge or show up with that kind of attitude?
I would say one really good place to look at for jobs like this is Counter Talk. So Counter Talk was started by Rav, who is like an absolute powerhouse within the industry and is so committed to, you might have seen her as a chef on Junior Bake Off, but as a guest judge on Junior Bake Off, but she's so committed, and the whole thing behind Counter Talk is about only advertising jobs that are, you know, fair and reasonable and pay well and have reasonable hours and have a good kind of work-life balance and are a good company to work for and all of that kind of stuff. So I think there probably is a lot of kind of, you know, anxiety about finding jobs out there, but looking in the right places, somewhere like Counter Talk, where, you know, they're kind of vetting the jobs that are being advertised, and they have jobs for all over the country and also all different areas of hospitality. So I think rather than just, you know, trying to look for any job that's available, looking for something that you know is going to be a little bit more long-term and sustainable, because we need to kind of, you know, another issue that we need to address in hospitality is how short-term a lot of people's jobs are, because that's not sustainable for the industry, for individual businesses, or for individual people. And I think that contributes to the mental health kind of, you know, problem that we have within the industry, is because people aren't staying in jobs long enough for, you know, people working with them and around them and above them to recognize if things might be wrong. So I think that, you know, making sure that rather than just, you know, looking for any job that we can find, we're looking for the kind of right ones that are a fit between both the person and the business.
Yeah, I think you got to decide, you know, what kind of job and career you want, because obviously these days, if you want to work in a Michelin star restaurant, that comes with a certain amount of pressure, and, you know, those businesses are slower to react to things like mental health than maybe the more corporate businesses. So, you know, I think as you start your career, really try to work out, you know, the type of business you want to work for. And as Tobie says, look, you know, trying to find the recruitment processes that understand that. And it's, you know, don't be afraid to ask the question. You know, you should not, you know, do you have a policy on your on mental health? Good mental health is not should not be shunned upon. That should be welcomed. And you know, I think businesses now totally understand that, but, you know, some more than others and some better than others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not much to add. I mean, there's great answers to that. One of the things that I personally talk about is concentrating on what we do have rather than what we don't. So yes, there is going to be a lack of jobs and potentially maybe a lack of jobs. But one thing that I know from talking to business owners is they're really starting to value their people a little bit more. They recognize that the people inside of the business is what makes them go round. And the fact that you're taking time out of your life to study hospitality means that you're already putting the best foot forward. You're already in a position to be able to go into business and say, look, this is not a stepping stone career for me. I've spent 3 years of my life studying it. It's something that I'm going to live and breathe. There are some amazing organizations out there that we work with called 68 People, who are an amazing recruitment firm who have just created a free job board that they're just about to launch. So even for paid hourly roles, you can jump on there. They work with an amazing group of ethical businesses that do put people first. So that would be a great route to go down. But yeah, maybe just thinking about what we do have and not what we don't is a great way to tackle kind of getting into a new workspace.
Thank you. Thanks for those great points there. Kate, Darby, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, this is just a general question to anybody really. I was just sort of wondering, do you think there is sort of like a stigma around, so if I take sort of myself, for example, if I was a member of a work team and it was majority male, i.e. my boss was male, his boss was male, etc., and vice versa, do you think there's sort of some sort of stigma around how an employee would talk to their employer? Because I don't know how comfortable I would feel if I was having a tough day, you know, approaching the opposite gender in a certain manner, if that makes sense. I feel like sometimes you can be put in there's a stigma between how females deal with mental health and how men deal with mental health. So I was just wondering whether anybody had any opinions on that.
Yes, 100%. I know that Tobie-Anna loves this subject, so she'll probably give a lot more detail than you. Personal experiences, again, 100%. I've worked in a lot of male environments with some toxic masculinity inside of it, and yes, it was a case of, oh well, they're just being very emotional, or it's all of these really, really negative things. And 100%, there is a stigma there. And one that we're approaching, we've actually just about to launch a lifestyle page with So Let's Talk, which is giving the hospitality professionals an opportunity to be able to share their experiences. And we talk about toxic masculinity inside of the workplace. One of the pieces that's being written is how to work around your menstrual cycle as a woman inside of hospitality, but also be really open and honest with it. I do believe there's a stigma there, and I do believe that it is something that we're going to address and something that needs working on. But I know Tobie-Anna absolutely loves this one, so so we'll let Tobie take the floor on this.
Yeah, 100%, Kate. Like there definitely is, and there is such a stigma, and a lot of the kind of statistics that we look at to do with mental health just prove how much more stigma men face around their mental health. And we do see that in hospitality, and we do see that in kitchens. And you know, I've spent all my chef career working in not only male-dominated kitchens, but to be honest, male-dominated workplaces where, you know, everybody from the top to the bottom it's mostly men. And at first I thought that as a woman, I had to match their kind of toughness and strength to fit in, especially as I worked my way up to being a head chef. I found it really difficult to kind of be soft and show my softer side. And then I suddenly realized, probably about 6 months in of being a bit shouty and trying to be strong and tough, that this wasn't working. It wasn't working for me. It wasn't working for anybody else. And it was really just not making me feel great. So I just suddenly went with a much more like, every day I just persist with the boys that I was working with, and be like, you know, let's talk about our feelings today and how's everybody going. And by the end of, you know, a year of working together almost every day, we had formed such like strong bonds, and we talked about so many different things. And I feel like it's actually that vulnerability and that ability to be honest and open about things and how you're feeling that is what makes people strong. And so being able to do that and encourage that within a workplace, whether it's you know, male dominated or not, is something that's really important. But that's cultural change that is like, I'm not going to lie, that's going to take years to come. It's getting better, but it is going to take a long time to change that kind of culture. And I think we can just all start by actually talking more openly and honestly about things, and not trying to stigmatize, you know, how we feel in any given situation.
I would just say that I was one of those male-dominated chefs for quite a long time, and I started my career 32 years ago, and I was a 16-year-old lad at the Savoy in London, and you can imagine what that was like in those days. So I actually, my first, I'd say at least 8 years was bred in that kind of environment, and it was years later I was working on a ship. And I had a lot of different cultures and lots of different genders and so on. And I worked out, actually, if you treated people well, you got a lot more out of them. So, you know, there was the kind of the flip side, actually. You know, you can treat people badly, you can treat them like as if you're some sergeant major and you're going to get more out of them, but actually you really don't. And so there's one aspect of this about being fair and being a decent human being. There's the business side where actually I want people to be happy, because when they're happy, they've got a smile on their face, genuine smile, and they do their job better, and they're more happier, and actually more productive. And I think, you know, probably take a lot less time off if they want to be there and they're enjoying their work. So it took, you know, I'd like to say majority of my career now I've been a decent person to work with and a nice person to work with, and hopefully, you know, I've helped along a lot of people stay in the industry, where, you know, the other way we lose people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great, guys. Claire, you made a comment about just graduates leaving their jobs. Do you want to share a few perspectives on that, given the last 12 months you've faced?
Yeah, just looking for some advice, really, from the panel. Before I ask my question, it's really great to have a fellow Northerner in the room tonight, Patrick. So lots of graduates have reached out to me over the last 12 months, and normally, you know, if they've lost their job, I know what to say, but it's really difficult. You know, in the events industry, there basically have been no events at all. How do I try and give them hope? Just trying to find the right words sometimes is really difficult. So, you know, do you have any advice for me?
Yeah, and that's a challenging scenario, right? Or it could be perceived as a challenging scenario. One of the things that we found a lot through running the sessions at So Let's Talk is people have this sense of loss, whether it's a loss of purpose or losing their roles. And one thing that we believe is being bypassed a lot is the fact of recognition. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. People seem to forget the fact that we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and there's a lot of loss happening around us. So if you are feeling a certain kind of way, those feelings are valid. And actually, less responses and more listening is probably what's needed. So in that scenario, I wouldn't speak too much. I'd ask questions and pregnant pause and allow people to speak, because that's what is going to be happening. You can't control what might be happening in the future, but what we can control is how we connect with people. And what I'd be doing is opening up conversations, allowing people that space to be able to talk in a comfortable, safe environment. And then if there's an opportunity to point them in a direction, the fact that they're caring so much to be able to have the conversation in the first place means that they've got the tenacity and the want to be in the industry. So there is hope on the horizon. We do have roadmaps in the UK back to where we're going to be going to. But for me, if I was in your position, Claire, I'd open up a conversation, I'd create a safe space for them to be able to talk, and I'd listen rather than respond in that scenario.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Paddy. I would say that you don't need to actually know what to say or how to respond. It's just about listening to them and acknowledging the fact that, like, we have been living through almost 12 months of being in a kind of state of trauma, essentially. You know, everybody has lost something in one way or another, and just really acknowledging that, and also acknowledging, I think this comes up a lot, what all I've been hearing lately from everyone is, I just feel so unproductive. And I'm like, yeah, of course you feel unproductive. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. Like, just because we've got used to this situation that we're in doesn't mean that it's normal, or that, you know, we shouldn't be feeling that way. So yeah, I think, you know, just to echo exactly what Paddy said, just being able to listen to them is more than enough. We don't need to have the answers in this situation, because, to be honest, there aren't really any answers.
I've got a slightly different sway on this one, because, you know, I've got one half of the business which is furloughed, which is the brigade, and then we've got the other half, which is the charity, which is having to support people. And I just think, you know, I think this is a time of opportunity, you know, that you can stop. I mean, we never get that time in hospitality. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, by the way. It is what it is. But it's a time to really dig deep and try and understand who we are, what we've got to offer. We've got amazing strengths. Maybe offering people the opportunity to look at where the gaps are in their you know, skill set, and use this time to grab hold of some other, you know, skills, or even just hobbies, you know, look into something. So I think absolutely listen. You know, people are very, you know, massively concerned. I personally think that the events industry is going to come back. People have got to get together. They've got to, and I think I'm not saying we will have forgotten this time, but I think we're very quick to kind of reset ourselves and move forward. But I just think, you know, there are opportunities now that we can help to strengthen ourselves. So I think we should do that.
Great stuff. Thank you. Anita, you had a question.
Hello. Yeah, so basically I studied catering at college for 2 years, and it was basically male dominant, the class and even our teachers. And I had fun. However, I felt very like men were so strong and amazing and they could do the job so well. However, if you're a woman, you either do desserts and like very cute stuff, and or you work front of house. And I was gonna say, even from my teachers, maybe I was unlucky, I don't know, would it be useful to start talking about mental health and issues and what you shouldn't say and how you shouldn't behave in a kitchen, if there's men and women, and that it is normal to be a woman and work in a kitchen as a head chef, you know? And would you say, sorry, I'm taking so long, would you say it's important to start from there instead of just having to go in the industry and then facing all the problems, but then going out there and finding the right place to work? Because I think you should start from education. I don't know what your points are on this.
Yes, 100%, 100,000%. I guess in fact, actually my original idea for Kelly's cause was to go into colleges and you know, anybody studying hospitality and be able to deliver the training, and it kind of then flipped into what it is now. But one of our more kind of like short to medium term goals is to be able to get at least our half-day mental health awareness training. And James and I have spoken about trying to get this through Atolo as much as we possibly can, delivered to everybody who's coming into the industry, because then eventually, if everybody coming into the industry already has that understanding and that knowledge and that foresight, then we're going to see the change happening. So yes, 100%, it is something that would be so helpful, and we're working on it.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I'm just going to echo what Tobie-Anna said. It's Let's Talk, we work on prevention and not cure, and that starts with education from the get-go. So yes, 100,000,000% our goal with Let's Talk is to have a Let's Talk ambassador in every hospitality organisation in the UK by 2025. Get to the stage where we have a certain government standard for health and wellness within inside of a business, where it's recognised. The same that food and hygiene rating would be recognised. We have a wellness rating for businesses. So this is a goal for the future, where we can have businesses that are recognised on health and wellness. And this starts with, what kind of tonality, what kind of words, how do we value our health and well-being as people, not just as industry professionals, but as human beings, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I haven't got anything else to add apart from I think it should start at school, frankly, life skills, how you talk to people, how you treat people. I personally, you know, with colleges, you know, the problem is they don't actually teach you management skills. You know, they'll teach you how to do a sole bonne femme, which you may or may not ever cook in your life, but how to deal with people, how to budget, how to write rotas, how to talk to people about time off and things like that. You know, these are all skills that they don't even go close to. So is it any surprise that people speak badly to people in the workplace when it's not on the agenda at all to speak to teach people? And then how, with chefs in particular, I would say how to cope with stress, how to cope with multi situations going on all at the same time. These things need to be taught, and you just expect to kind of understand how to do it through experience.
Yeah,
it is a problem across the industry where people can make it to very senior positions without ever having any formal training. I became a head chef with never having any kind of training about how to manage people, and half of my job as a head chef was managing people. Yeah. So it is really, really such, you know, I think that there's work kind of happening around that, like London School of Food and stuff like that, kind of trying to introduce it. But you're right, I learned so many things in cooking school that I've never ever made again. and learned so many, there could have been so much room to learn other kind of more useful skills.
I think the other thing is if say you start a business and you've taken loans, maybe you've generated the money yourself, and then you start the business, and the pressure of just maintaining it and being successful, more than just what you put on a plate or how you serve a plate, the pressure is so hard, and it will be so hard going out of this pandemic, how to maintain your business and without losing it. It's a huge thing. I've done it myself, maintaining that pressure. I think head chefs and chef patrons and restaurant managers, they all should be getting very close mentoring, coaching all along their career, so that they can balance the pressure out with some good conversations.
No, that's great. I'm just conscious we've got a lot of really good questions coming in, so we'll try and keep the pace up. So Ellie asked me to ask this question. For people who struggle with PTSD triggers, how might companies best help handle those triggers in the hospitality space? Just you've got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. And get teams like Tobie-Anna and the Kelly's Callers in to run out mental health first aid training. They could contact organisations like So Let's Talk, and for us it's that education. It'd do it a disservice for us to sit here and go through techniques that we could use that are blanketed in something that is so personal. And it deserves that kind of space and that one-to-one talking with a professional. What we forget sometimes in the industry, that the first port of call is to talk to a GP, to go and talk to a professional, go and talk to someone who is equipped to do this, take the pressure away from what it is that we are. And yes, as managers, we can be empaths and we can really care for people, but we can take on people's emotions and take those emotions home with us. And who's safeguarding us in that situation? So it is a cycle. So I don't want to seem like I'm skirting around the question, but talk to professionals, get teams in to help with things like PTSD.
Yeah. Can I just add? I think be honest with your line manager or whoever's interviewing you. I've had this myself where I wasn't aware, and you can't support somebody if you're not aware of what the issues are, and you shouldn't be afraid to tell people during interviews, because if they're not going to, it's better to not be there if they're not going to accept you for who you are and what your skills are. But we're all human, we want to help each other.
Absolutely. I echo both of that, but especially what Simon said. It is really important that we create a culture within hospitality in which people feel comfortable disclosing these things, because I don't think that many people right now would be comfortable to go into an interview for a job as a chef and say, oh, I've been diagnosed with XXX mental health condition, and this means that I have to have these adjustments. Most places, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most places would say, no, that's above what we're capable of doing. So I think I agree that we should be encouraging people to do that, but we need to kind of create the culture in which the businesses are going to be open to helping and supporting someone through that.
Do you think, I'm going to be cheeky and ask the follow-up question here though, because that is the tension, right? And do you think that there is some personal responsibility to know what to ask the company to do? So it's like, this is what my diagnosis, actually, if we do these 2 or 3 things, I know that helps me manage it. Does that help the education process and help an employer go, oh, okay, well, let's keep talking, rather than potentially go, I just don't know how to deal with that. I'm not up to speed.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And that comes through every aspect of our health, whether it be rotoring and learning to say no because we want to be able to see our family, so we're not going to agree to a 70-hour working week, or we're not going to do 3 FD back to back. It comes in every aspect. Learning to actually be able to stand and say, no, that's not going to work for me. Actually, I'm not going to be able to bring my best self to work and be as productive as I possibly can because of what's happening inside of the workspace is affecting that. But that can be in any aspect of your health, physical, mental, financial.
So I think we forget that as an employee, you actually do have power and you do have a say over what happens to you. And it's not just all that power isn't in the business's hands. And do you know what? Even right now in COVID, when there are so many people without jobs, all I see is people advertising for chefs and for front of house staff all over everything. So it's okay for you to say, no, I'm actually only going to take this job if you're going to, make these concessions for me, or, I actually don't want to work 4 back-to-back doubles in a row. You're going to have to change the rota to work. So I think there has become this thing where, everybody's become almost a little bit submissive to what the business is telling us we should do, because that's just the culture in hospitality. But the change needs to come from the businesses at the top, changing that, but also from everybody working within the industry to kind of stand up for themselves and say, actually, no, these are my boundaries. And, this is when I want to work. And, obviously within reason, but that we do have the kind of ability to do that. And I think we need to be encouraging people, especially coming into the industry, to be able to do that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. Eszter, I really love your question here. Do you feel comfortable asking that?
Yeah, totally. So I graduated during the pandemic, with lovely, great thing, and events, and I'm working in hospitality just now, whilst on furlough. So when it's safe to go back, so I work in a pub which is very traditional, very male dominant, and there's all this thing that I'm trying to get them to open up, and from a new kind of perspective, do you have any advice on how to create an environment that lets active listening conversations rather than just one-to-ones, because I'm not in a position to do that even with people higher up with me. And there's also this thing of like, a feel box where you can write down anonymously. Is that cliche, or does that actually work? How can we produce these conversations?
Yeah, love that. So there's a couple of things that we talk about, and one of them is actually a technique that Airbnb use, and it's called the elephant, the dead fish, and the vomit. So after a shift, you talk about what's the elephant in the room. So what's been affecting the pub that no one's really talking about, and then you talk about the dead fish, which is the issue or the challenge that you talked about last week that's not been sorted. Nothing's been done about it. That's stinking out the pub. And then we talk about the vomit, which is creating a space where we can openly talk to senior management about things that probably we wouldn't talk to them about usually. That allows us to start what I call our pre-game, which is being able to offload some of your thoughts and feelings before you leave work, so you can unwind before you go to sleep, and allowing you to kind of get rid of some of those emotions and feelings in a really safe space. That in itself, I know that the language might be deemed as quite masculine, but what it does is it allows people to open up about a conversation. And if that vomit is, do you know what, I've been feeling really anxious about getting back into the workplace, or I'm feeling a little bit too much pressure and I've got this going on at home, it allows that conversation to happen. So yeah, that's just a little technique that we share that actually does work pretty well.
I love that. That's actually very great. That's hilarious. I also think that the feelings box, I spoke to someone today who said that they use that in their workplace and they said that it's great. So yeah, it might be a little bit cliche, but if it works, go for it. And then I would also say something that you can do is just start to share more how you're feeling and be a little bit more open and honest about things that are going on. And that can help, encourage others. But it's hard, don't get me wrong. It's still tough.
I think you just have to sometimes ask if you feel like you'd like something, just go to, I know you might think your line manager or the management or even the owner of the business doesn't want to hear certain things, but actually you might be quite surprised. So maybe at the right time, over a coffee or something, ask and say, look, this is something you're interested in, and you'd like to lead on it, and could you get their backing? And I think sometimes you'll be quite surprised by what you hear.
Yeah, just to add on that, Eszter, there's an organisation called Sanctus, Amazing Human Beings, and they have a live journaling session that they run every morning that you can do for your businesses, and it allows a group of people to go onto a Google document that's live anonymously and start to do some journaling and ask some questions to each other. The first question that they ask is to explain your mood with a food group and then what's going on inside of your life. So it could be like anxious donut, and then it lightens up the mood. And what happens is you can then start to create a really safe space for you to talk openly but anonymously about what's going on, whether it be in your work life or your home life. So yeah, Sanctus, they're amazing.
Very cool. I've got a question. We can chance you guys to get a bit more personal now. Someone's going the freelance route. Not a lot of jobs available, so they're going to create their own company. What have you learned about managing? You have done that. What have you learned about managing your own mental health in the ups and downs of that? Because you don't have this kind of employer who does or doesn't get it. It's just you and no money. And so what tips can you share about starting your own business and how you manage your day-to-days? We're getting...
Go for it, Paddy.
Yeah, okay, cool. So for me, the biggest realization is that prioritizing my own mental, physical, and financial health is not selfish, it's wise. So I come first always, no matter what decision that I make in business or in life. Also, without sounding really cliche, is that failing forward is something that I used to kind of live by, but now I recognize that my emotions are valid, so I validate my emotions a lot. And when I mean prioritizing myself, when it's time to sleep, there's nothing more important that goes on inside of my life, and I class food as personal development. So you can get caught up in this hustle that you see on social media, where people will tell you that sleep is for those people who are broke, or sleep when you're dead, and they idolize all of these really destructive habits. That's nonsense. There's no right and wrong way to set up a business. I'm going to be completely honest with you all. I'm completely winging this. Yes, I'm from a family of NLP practitioners. I'm an NLP coach myself, but it doesn't give me a right to set up a platform that talks about mental, physical, and financial health. But it seems to be happening really well and growing at a certain rate. And that's because there's authenticity at the core of it. So I don't mind looking like an idiot. I ask questions when I want to ask questions, and we're in that position to be able to feel comfortable and to be able to do that. But also there's power in people, so letting people take the lead on certain aspects. But I hope that's helped. That's kind of a snapshot of what's brought me to being happy at where I am.
Simon, do you want to do us the lead?
I'm such a minefield on this subject. You know, it's so hard having to starting something yourself, because it's so lonely, and all the way through. It doesn't matter if it's a small organization becoming a bigger one. It's a lonely place to be, and you've got to look after yourself. And I can tell you personally, you know, how you know, the first 10, 12 years of the business, I just worked 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. I rarely saw my family. I used to, you know, my son who sat next to me, he's big now, but when he was little, would come into work at the weekends, because it was the only time I saw him. I would literally not pay myself so I could pay the staff the right fee. You know, I've got every story under the sun. And my wife, who helped me run the business, passed away, and that, you know, I still, you know, I pretty much worked all the way through that. You know, it's like I just didn't see what the hell was going on, and you have to stop, and you have to. I think, like I said it before, but you have to bring somebody into your life that you can share and talk to, and they can advise you on things, because when you're up there on your own and you're in the middle of it, sometimes you just can't see the wood for the trees. So I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to share, find people, and if you haven't got someone and you want to do it now, then find someone before you start, because actually, as you start to build your business plan and you start to put these things into place, you can have that sounding block right from the start. I did it too late.
100% having another person, whether that's someone that's working directly with you or someone who's more in a mentoring role or whatever, having a person like I have Rose who's on this call, and she'll hate me for shouting out about her, but honestly I could do literally nothing without her, because not only does she help me in the practical sense of everything, but she also supports me emotionally through everything. And also, the number one thing to note is that nobody actually has any idea what they're doing. So if you're looking at what somebody else is doing and think, oh, like, how are they doing that? Like, nobody has any idea what they're doing. Most people are winging it and making it up as they go along, and you can do exactly the same thing.
Can I just add one thing? It's your family is so important, because it's your dream sometimes. It's not always a shared dream that you want to go off and go, you know, and create this new world, whether it's a business or an organization or a think tank or whatever, a social cause. You've got to have them on side. You know, you can't go on this on your own, and you know, you've got to kind of almost agree what you're going to do. And I think it's so important. They can help you. You know, obviously, if the first part of this you have to work harder and you're not going to be there physically, they need to pick up the slack that you're going to leave. And so I think, yeah, bringing your family in really important.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I mean, the points are amazing, and to kind of reiterate something as well is that amidst the madness of kind of creating your own thing, you can kind of forget about what it is that you had wanted to achieve in the first place. So kind of revisiting that why and keeping it at the core of what it is that you do, but also talking to other people about it. So it's a Let's Talk. We've created quite a Swedish model, as we call it, where everyone gets paid the same salary. There's no titles within inside of the business. Everyone gets unlimited vacation time, and there's no set working hours, which sounds a little bit out there to a lot of people, but we did that through conversation. And I was open enough to tell them that I don't ever want to be a CEO. I don't want to be a managing director. All of that kind of stuff just doesn't resonate with me. I want to be a founder. I like talking to people and connecting. So making sure that you're authentic from the beginning, and people are there to help. And if your why is strong enough, people will resonate with it.
Yeah, I think always asking yourself and being accountable to your why, and like within, you know, Kelly's Cause, we have our like vision, our mission and our aims, and everything that we do, like literally everything from a post we make on Instagram to anything that we do, we have to be accountable and make sure that it fits with all of that. And then that will help steer you on the right direction for remembering your why, basically.
That's perfect. I for those, we are very tight on time, and I always finish on time because I know people have got other commitments, especially this time of day. But for those that we didn't get a chance to ask the question, so I think Giuseppe, you had some. I think Mary Eleanor, please do just find our presenters on LinkedIn or on Atollo. Don't stop. And if anything's bothered you, please do reach out to Susan and by email or text. It's absolutely what we're here for. But last question for each of you very quickly, I suppose. Give us a snapshot. What's next for your business? And then to tag on Kat's question, do you have any volunteering opportunities if people do want to throw themselves in your direction to, you know, stay busy and useful and keep learning in this space? So I'll go quick round robin on those two topics. Tobie-Anna, you can go first.
Yes, if anyone wants to do mental health first aid training, we've got courses running all the time. You can find out about them at kellyscause.com, or the best thing to do is just really to email me or message me on LinkedIn, and I'll let you know about more. And hopefully, James, we can figure something out to get some running through Atollo. In terms of volunteering opportunities, I'd love to say yes, but obviously when we're talking about mental health, it's quite complex to have kind of volunteers, but you know, we're always looking for people to just help kind of shout about us and spread the word, so that's really helpful as well.
Cool, thanks. Paddy?
What's next for Let's Talk? So we're in a huge stage of growth at the moment. We just signed contracts with some amazing organisations, and we're in a stage where we're going to be training what's looking like 6,000 to 7,000 people within the next 7 or 8 months for Let's Talk, which is absolutely incredible. We launch our lifestyle page at the end of this month, which is just going to be www.selecttalk.co, where it gives hospitality professionals the opportunity to share some of their experiences and maybe earn a side income in the process. We also run some challenges on a yearly basis, and that's going to be open for people to be able to join us, where we walk 10 peaks in 10 hours in the Lake District and raise money for our cause at Let's Talk. And yes, so if there is somebody who's out there who's wanting some opportunities with Let's Talk, it may be not on a volunteered basis. One of our core values is to pay people what they're worth, because we haven't been doing that for a long time inside of the industry, from my opinion. So yes, there is paid work available. We are going to be reaching out and starting to employ some more people and building our team really soon.
Very exciting. And Simon?
Getting the business back up and running after it being closed for so long is our main focus over the next 3 months. For the charity itself is we're just doing a contract with the DWP to put our primary engagement programs out into trying to help people that have lost their jobs. So that's our main 2 focuses. And we need help all the time. We have a small organisation trying to do a lot of social good. So, you know, anyone that have got a skill that they might like to offer, particularly like next few months, if you're not working with, then do get in touch with us.
Perfect. I cannot thank you enough. It's been fantastic. Tobie-Anna, Paddy, Simon, thank you for sharing your expertise with us. As I say, we have not even scratched the surface, and appreciate that you guys couldn't go into a lot of detail on stuff that you are incredibly passionate about. So please do pick up with these 3 fab co-hosts and their organizations online or on Atollo. And then obviously put yourself first. I think, Paddy, absolutely the key point here. Do take care of yourself. Reach out for people for help when you need it. And definitely stay safe, everyone. And we'll see you on Atollo. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for your time and for sharing so openly. It's been great. Bye.
Later. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
Cheers, Simon. Take care, everyone.
Cheers.